Welcome to Consult Therapy, where we reload minds and revitalize lives. Thank you for joining me on part 3 of our mini-series of cognitive distortions. Make sure to follow and share this with others that you feel like this could help. Cognitive distortions are plaguing our communities, our friends, our family, pretty much anyone that you can think of deals with this in some type of way or another. So make sure to share this with others so we can revitalize lives around the world. So getting into our discussion today, this is cognitive distortion number 7. All 3 of the ones we're going to talk about today are probably ones that I've dealt with the most or currently deal with. This first one is one that it used to plague my mind like all the time, right? So cognitive distortion number 7 is blaming or a lack of ownership in your life. Instead of realizing that you have power in your life, that you can change it and make it the way that you want it to, you limit yourself and others by saying things like, or thinking things like, I've had a hard life, so X, Y, and Z, or you don't know what I've been through, or because of my parents and my siblings doing X, Y, and Z to me, this is the way I am. Because of my family, I was raised in a home like X, Y, and Z. And letting those things limit you from achieving greatness. So realize today that you have power to make things happen in your life and change for the better. Cognitive distortion number 8 is just world thinking. And what that means is when you deal with this cognitive distortion, you believe and assume that the world or like the events that happen in the world will be balanced fairly. This is a cognitive distortion that I get caught in myself sometimes. Like when frustrating things happen to me or something that's just terrible, or we get bad news, my wife and I get bad news about something. I just want to think like, okay, so something's going to happen good to us just because we're good people and we try to do the right thing. The reality is though, is this world isn't fair. The things that happen to us aren't fair most of the time. One way that I've found to overcome this, in my experience, is to accept the situation that you're dealt with, right? We all have difficult things that we go through. No one's life is super easy, and things are changing all the time. So what I found is accept where you are right now, because what that does is it helps you adapt to your situation, which in turn will help you find solutions to things that happen to you that are outside of your control so you can change it for the better. Cognitive distortion number 9, the last one of our mini-series, is emotional reasoning. This is when you believe how you feel is evidence of reality. In other words, what that means is how you feel reflects facts or reality. Let me just explain. I work in the sales field quite a bit. I've been in sales for just about 6 years now. Whether that's knocking on doors, going into small businesses, sitting down in people's homes with them. I've found that with my colleagues, a lot of times are people trying out sales for the first time. And I'll see it a bunch where people get into sales and maybe they don't do very well to begin with. And they'll use, I call it the God crutch. And maybe that's not the best term for it. But you'll see people come into the sales world and let's say they're Christian, they're religious, and since they don't have a hot start, they felt good about starting their career. And then what happens is 2 weeks down the road, they say, I was praying and God told me not to do this anymore. I totally believe in receiving revelation and receiving answers to prayers, but I feel like a lot of times we kind of use God as the excuse not to do challenging things. This could be for your career, whatever career you're in. It could be for, let's say you get fearful about driving across town or playing in a basketball game, going to a party, going to a church event or church in general, going to a work party. It could really be anything like that. And just because we feel fearful and anxious about it, all of a sudden we believe something bad will happen, or I'm not supposed to be doing this, or I don't belong, right? There's a few cognitive distortions that are tied in with emotional reasoning. My goal explaining this cognitive distortion is to help you realize that just because you're afraid or anxious about something does not make it fact. If you go back to our primal years, right, our ancestors way long ago, what our emotions, what our anxieties and our fears were meant to do was to protect us from things that could eat us, that could kill us. So in today's world, we don't deal with those same exact things, right? Unless you're like a hunter, an avid hunter, and you're in the woods all the time, right? For most of us, our anxiety can just run wild. But just because you feel anxiety doesn't make it fact. So what I'm saying is, don't make decisions just solely based off of how you feel. Because if it is something that sparks anxiety, if it is something that sparks a fear, then you could make an irrational decision and basically limit yourself in your life. My challenge to you is to find those cognitive distortions that you struggle with and that plague your life and create a plan to overcome those. Because what these do, if we let them run rampant in our lives, they can destroy our emotional, our physical, and our social well-being. Even our spiritual well-being as well. So take time to recognize those cognitive distortions that might be controlling your life and figure out how you're going to overcome those. All I can give is what I've learned, and what has helped me with emotional reasoning is trying to think on a more logic side, but also use my emotions as well. I figure using the logic side of our brain and the emotional side of our brain, meeting somewhere in the middle of those two usually helps me make the best decisions. So find out what works for you.